OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, you're very welcome along this Wednesday morning to OTB AM. It's Jerry Gilroy and Eoin Sheahan here with you until 9:30. We're here every morning. We stream live on YouTube, we stream live on the Go Loud app, and we stream live on offtheball.com. And this morning we're looking back on a great night of football and wondering why every game of football isn't played under lights midweek. None of this weekend stuff at 3 o'clock. Who needs that? We need midweek under lights.
Or else the alternative here is that actually this Premier League season has been outrageously good. And when we look back on it in years to come, what we will see is that Liverpool ran away with the title, and we forget that actually 19 other teams take part in the Premier League.
Heresy, Eoin. The league has degenerated into a procession, is the received wisdom from the football Illuminati.
That one element has obviously turned this into a Premier League season that many people won't care too much about at the end. But if you are a fervent supporter of any of the other teams, maybe not Manchester City, because obviously they would have been going for the Premier League title, maybe 18 of the other teams, you will have had a lot of things, a lot of emotions going on in your head at some point during the season, whether you're in a relegation battle or if you're not in a relegation battle, you're basically in a fight to get into the European spots. And if you're not in a fight for the European spots, then you're one of the top two. So there is something for everybody this season, and I think it's just been a genuinely dramatic season. But of course, you throw in darkness and the lights and it all just goes crazy. And
the late goals.
The late goals help, but
actually the early goals were also pretty funny in many
helped
ways.
usually, and the early sending offs, which contributed to what I think is the television moment of the year. I call it all off now. The television moment of the year happened on BT Sport last night.
I'm going to see that when I raise one in a minute, but go on.
When it's one of the best innovations I've ever seen, which is David Luiz obviously got sent off in very early stages against Chelsea last night, and late in the game, there's David Luiz watching the game. Hasn't gone for a shower yet, still watching, wearing his Arsenal shorts, watching the game, and BT Sport follow him into the tunnel. He's watching himself.
In vision.
And
so
I think
they've
I think there's an issue with his stream there, or with the connection to the television, so he's looking a bit frustrated with how things go. But
he's looking at the camera going, who's that? How did they get that? Oh, you're watching. Oh.
And of course, people on Twitter made this great connection. BT Sport has rights to WWE for 5 minutes, says Joe Mills on Twitter, because of course in the WWE you had situations like this where the contender to the WWE Championship would be standing backstage waiting for their cue. Personally, when I saw it happen, I was like, well, this is kind of like that Big Brother series when they created a whole new house and there was other housemates watching other housemates actually live their life. That's what I thought this was kind of based on.
A wrinkle I don't remember, I have to say.
From Luiz last night. So, it's maybe they were saving it just for David Luiz, because everything is just so much funnier when David Luiz is involved.
Surely the equaliser for Newcastle against Everton is actually the televisual moment of the year. Those finals, so it's 2-0 to Everton at 90 minutes, 2-0 to Everton at 91 minutes, 2-0 to Everton at 92 minutes, it's 2-0 to Everton at 93 minutes, and then Newcastle score, and it was like, even the Newcastle TV commentators like, oh, Newcastle got one back. It's an overhead bicycle kick.
Yeah, Florian Sheahan is even like, I don't care.
Yeah, I just done an overhead bicycle kick. It was beautiful. And he runs to get the ball, and there's like a little bit, and then it's like, oh, all eyes on the watch as the ball pinballs around the area for one of the best goalmatch scrambles you're ever going to see. And stupid Jordan Pickford is too dumb to realise that he's got to stand in front of the line, then behind the line, and if you stand behind the line, it's going to be a goal. But that was like, I couldn't, from the footage on Twitter last night, I couldn't see where the goal went in. It's only when you watch it on a big screen, you're like, hang on a second, where's Pickford? Oh, about like 2 miles behind it. That was amazing.
You don't get goal-mouth scrambles like that with the way the Premier League has actually got very, very good over the last couple of decades. But it was a situation where you thought that there was actually a smoke screen that had gone up on your TV, and then Jordan Pickford emerges from the smoke with a very grumpy face indeed.
Kicking the ball. Carlo Ancelotti afterwards, like, as a true leader, was like, I told them, don't worry, I've been in many situations like this before. I once led 3-0 in the Champions League final. I was like, is that really the note you want to sing? Have you been a good manager since then, Carlo? I'm sure he's done really good things since then. Obviously, he's won the league with Chelsea and all that kind of stuff. But
also the Liverpool aspect of that comment as well. Which
I know. It's like, just think that one through a little bit. Just think that one through.
That was the last time our club finished fourth in the Premier League, of course. It said Carlo. I'm sure he finished that. That's how he finished his quote. But
was that year?
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah.
Right, okay.
15 seasons ago.
Yeah, well, they ain't going to be finishing fourth. And a quick word about Southampton, who we're going to talk briefly about, not too long, but a team beaten 9-0, a team who I think, if anybody was serving up cold takes in the immediate aftermath, I was wishing them good riddance. This is what they get for their, chronic underinvestment, blah, blah, blah. Here they are, Where are they in the table?
They are in 9th, I should say. 1 point above Arsenal and level on points with Tottenham Hotspur.
1 point above Arsenal and level with Spurs. You would say that, like, Spurs are still banging on about we still have a chance of qualifying for the Champions League. I mean, they don't, really, realistically. They don't. It's just Mourinho has that ability to look at my hand, don't look into my eyes, look at my hand, and everyone's like, oh, wow, okay. Obviously, it's fading fast, but that's one of the greatest comebacks in sports history that I can remember. Hasenhüttl was on the way out. He should have been fired. Your team gets beaten 9-0, you expect to get fired. And they didn't. And here they are. Was it seven wins from 8 games? Or
They're an incredible run of form. They certainly won 3 of their last 5.
6 wins from the last 8 games.
So
amazing.
Like it did happen very early in the year, the whole 9-0 thing.
No, but it's 9-0 against Leicester.
At least
it wasn't Liverpool, the greatest Liverpool team of all time, and Salah scores 5 and Mane scores 4, and you're like, oh well, these are the 2 best strikers in the world at the moment. It was Leicester.
If you're going to be patient with one team, or at one moment, it's probably going to be at that moment, because you've got a lot of the season left to go, and also you've got a fairly sizable improvement that can be made in a fairly short amount of time. So I think fair play to Southampton for sticking with Hasenhüttl. Like, if I was chairman or chief executive or whatever, you're wheeling that axe straight away to try and save your own face a small bit. And then a new manager would have come in and perhaps got them to 9th as well, and because the players are clearly there.
Yeah, players are definitely. Well, Danny Ings has turned into a really good striker, and they rested him last night because they're playing in the Cup at the weekend. Hence, Long and Obafemi started. You see they're 2-0 up early on. You know the 2 Irish strikers are starting. You check the score. Neither of them scored. And apparently Long missed a chance. But he scored at the weekend, so maybe he's done enough to get back into the Ireland squad.
Yes, you would have thought. But you can't say anything with total certainty when it comes to the Republic of Ireland at the moment. No, you can't. So that's an amazing story. We're going to get through the football with Damien Delaney. I'll tell you what else is coming up on the show this morning. We've got Damien Delaney coming up at 7:45. Around about 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to Anthony Moyle. Second day in a row, but this time it's about the CPA, because they issued a statement last night, and Micheál Brodie's done some interviews on the back of that. They're saying that it is time for militant action. That they've canvassed a sizable number of their members, and that there is a significant disconnect between their members and what they believe is the fixtures proposals that are going to be put forward at Special Congress at the end of the Championship season this year. So we'll get some more details on that from Anthony Moyle around about 8 o'clock. Ronan Kelleher, who it looks like, if he's fit, will start for Ireland in the Six Nations as our first choice hooker. It is a meteoric rise for a very young man. Eoin's been out talking to him, so we'll bring you that a little bit later on. Fallon Sherrock made global headlines in the darts just before Christmas, and she's also been speaking with Eoin about her rise to celebrity, and top 5 stories of the day. We'll revisit them around about 9 o'clock and bring you deal or no deal. Some stories bubbling away at the moment. What are we, 8 days left before the transfer window slams shut on Manchester United's dreams, and some Man United news in the papers as well, which we're going to get to right now.
OTB AM.
So the first couple of pages of the newspapers this morning, certainly the broadsheets, are match reports. Bellerin leaves it late to secure 10-man Arsenal draw. There's a picture of Sergio Aguero. Aguero breaks Sheffield Steel. Sheffield United are really good, and they're good to watch. And there's always stuff happening in those games, and they are a very welcome addition to the Premier League. So just want to get you on to the meat of the stuff that isn't. It's the match report. Sean Moran got an interesting column today. GA votes one way in under-20s and acts another. The Ulster Schools executive met on Monday night for some unscheduled and unwelcome business. It's a busy organisation at a busy time of year. For instance, this is high season for the McCrory Cup, the province's senior football championship, which with Munster's hurling Harty Cup is the highest profile of the provincial schools titles. But he's talking here about the fixtures issues, particularly the difficulties that teenage players and players in their early 20s are having. And, you know, feeds into the story that we've been talking about really since we had Luke Heaney in to talk about his hip injury and what role the under-20s should have and what role the colleges should have. The drop quote is, there has apparently been a complete disregard for what the GAA owes to the secondary and third level education sectors. Those games matter. Those schools games matters. Those college games matter to the people who are playing in them. And it's supposed to be a players' association. I think they are ultimately more important than, and we should be encouraging people to stay in school. We should be encouraging people to go to university and put some primacy on those competitions. Anyway, let those clubs who are without sin cast the first stone at Saracens. Interesting column from Gordon Darcy today. Just kind of setting it out there, you know. It's going to be very interesting to see who shouts the loudest about Saracens. And beware of the people who are shouting the loudest at Saracens. Because, English rugby hasn't exactly covered itself just yet.
The Premiership is a competitive league.
Yeah.
It's not like that they
didn't
use their resources and then crush everybody. They're obviously the superior team, but it wasn't exactly like a chasm between them and the rest. The Irish Examiner this morning, saved by the bell. 10-man Arsenal recover from a staffy howler to hold Chelsea in 2-2 thriller. Changing the game plan meanwhile, CPA ruling out strike action, but plan to pressure GEA sponsors. Kieran Shannon is writing about the Allianz League. Serious business of the Football League will take place off Broadway. Division 2 and 3, obviously the most important things by distance in the Football League this year. In the know, team-by-team guide to the Allianz Football League, Donald Lenihan is saying Saracens may break up squad, but players' mettle cannot be questioned. And Troy, just a boy. Mourinho says Parrott not ready at all to lead line for Spurs. It's something we're going to come back to a couple of times in this morning show.
Now, so different take from the Irish Independent on the CPA story. CPA near strike action after members back militant move. That's the headline on Donncha Boyle's piece on the survey. Recent evidence of Donegal withdrawing from the McKenna Cup third level games, clashing with under-20 and inter-county, just further proves the necessity for Central Council and Congress to adopt radical change in regard to redressing the master fixtures list. So, and then the Mourinho Parrott story. We've all been urging. Well, there's been a move for Troy Parrott needs to get first team football. Jose Mourinho doesn't agree just yet. Teenage star Troy Parrott has suffered another blow in his bid to make progress at Spurs, as manager Mourinho has told the 17-year-old he's a long way off the first team. That could see Parrott's advisors demand a loan move, as he faces the prospect of no game time before the end of the season. Mourinho has warned, I had a long conversation with him today. I think he has potential. I think he needs to work a lot. He has a process to go through. I think Troy has to go through a process. I'm not saying he's not able to have minutes, but to put on his shoulders the responsibility of replacing somebody to be replaced, I don't think he's ready at all. This is probably good management from Mourinho. Instead of saying, Harry Kane's out, Troy Parrott, he's the man, what a superstar. This guy, he's 17, he can handle it. Like, tell everybody he can't handle it, and then maybe if he can, it's a nice surprise.
And the worst thing that could happen to Troy Parrott here is that people start looking at what other teenagers are doing in the Premier League, especially with lesser clubs, and think to themselves, well, if they're doing it, then Troy Parrott can do it and he should be in the team. Patience is so important at this moment. There's a lot that what Jose Mourinho says that is right about this whole situation. At the back of the Irish Daily Star this morning is Saved by the Bell. Again, I think there's a lot of newspapers who are going to go with that headline this morning. Arteta delight as Hector grabs draw for 10-man Gunners. Got that story about Troy Parrott there as well. The CPA reported on the back page. And this one here by John Fallon, fans face playoff blackout. So this is bad news for anyone, potentially, for who don't have Sky Sports at home, because Sky and RTE are at loggerheads over rights to screen the crunch tie in Slovakia on March 26th. So UEFA might need to come in to resolve this. Sky Sports have the Nations League package. They argue that this is obviously a Nations League playoff, which it is, and that they should have the game, whereas RTE say this is a qualifier, which I guess it always also is as well, and they've had all the qualifiers, so they should get the game. I reckon UEFA are going to come in and they'll both be able to televise the game. And
right, and so Virgin couldn't just step in, because Virgin have rights to highlights, which would be good. There is an alternative out there. At this stage, probably better soccer coverage as well. Jose blow for Parrott. Loan looming as Mourinho warns Troy he's not ready. Spurs versus Norwich Premier League preview from the Herald today. Options at midfield must be Desi's priority, says Alan Brogan in his column today. And Danny is new dub skipper. So Danny Sutcliffe is the skipper of the Dublin Hurlers. And Marcus was not injured. This is an interesting story from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's defended himself against accusations he put his own interests ahead of Marcus Rashford's following the striker's injury setback. But they're professional players. Like, this is you either say I'm injured and I can't play, or you make yourself available for selection. Rashford's facing a lengthy spell on the sidelines, suffering a stress fracture. Solskjaer, apparently, according to Ian Wright, accused Solskjaer of thinking about himself before the player. I never put myself before the team. Marcus has had minor discomfort in his back since the Burnley game. We've had scans, we've monitored him. There has not been any injury. He's had complaints, and I said, FA Cup, I'm going to rest you. He was adamant that if needed, he could do at least a half an hour. That just shows you Marcus's attitude. So the kid wants to play.
Back page of the Sun, also saved by the bell. Heck of a fight from 10 men. Late Show is the headline on Aston Villa 2, Watford 1, and also Everton 2, Newcastle 2. couple of exclusives here then as well. An 18 party, Ross Munnelly is Gaelic football's last man standing. On Sunday he hopes to begin his 18th season as a Laois footballer at the age of 37. And put on a Joe, writes Kevin Byrne. Joe Ward is hoping to fight on Katie Taylor's next US bill in April in the second bout of his comeback from injury.
Rashford's Euro 2020 injury fear, so it looks like Marcus Rashford might not be available to play for the rest of the season, according to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's latest press conference update, which would obviously put him in doubt for Euro 2020, which suddenly, no Harry Kane for Euro 2020, no Marcus Rashford. Danny Ings, come on down.
The Mirror goes with Flippanek. Bellerin scores a sensational equaliser in Crazy Derby that saw Louise sent off against his old club and Abraham injured. Lejeune to legend in 102 seconds is the headline on the 2-2 draw at Goodison Park. And Ole, right's wrong. I've always put Rashford first.
And Telegraph Sport, Bellerin to the rescue, battling Arsenal twice come from behind after Louise is sent off. And just their back page, an interesting column, final whistle from Alistair Tweedale. Statistics show host clubs score more often in front of diehard fans. The Stretford end, the Gallowgate end, the Holt end. I mean, how appropriate is this? It was in front of the Holt end last night that Tyrone Mings somehow got the credit for Villa's winner.
At The Guardian, Bear in Beauty, 10-man Arsenal hit back twice to stun Chelsea after David Luiz is sent off, and Premiership Rugby urges Saracens to come clean over report.
Okay, two final ones. The we did the Examiner, right?
We
did
did.
the Examiner, right? Yeah, okay. And the Irish News here, we've got this one for you. CPA's put pressure on GAA sponsors over fixture issues, so they're going after the money. We'll get the story from that from Anthony Moyles around about 8 o'clock, just for a couple of minutes. So if you've got any opinion on that, we'd like to hear it this morning. You can use the hashtag OTB AM, or of course you can just tweet us at @OffTheBallAM is the direct Twitter account for the show. Now, about to be joined by Damien Delaney. You know the way we love local radio here. Well, it turns out in-house TV for Premier League stations, for Premier League clubs, their in-house TV station is almost as one-eyed as local radio. Here's how Aston Villa's coverage ended of their six-pointer against Watford last night. Have a listen.
Drives it forward, up they go, the header down, might break for Mings, who goes down, yes! Listen to how much this means! Ezri Konsa makes himself a Villa Park hero! All the points, all the passion, all the emotion, just listen to this! This is why Aston Villa just has to be in the Premier League. There's no better stadium in the English game. Ezri Konsa, take a bow.
Ah, yeah. Damien Delaney, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
A little bit of madness of Wednesday morning or a Tuesday night as it was when that goal went in. Happy days for Villa fans.
Yeah, absolutely massive goal for them, lifting themselves out of the relegation zone, and they're probably under pressure to be a little bit better off this season, at this stage of the season, than probably what they are, but they've certainly got the makings of a good team there.
Tell us a little bit about what those relegation six-pointers are actually like. What's the pressure like compared to, say, a big cup game?
Well, I mean, if you get knocked out of the cup, it's not the end of the world, but if you lose a couple of those so-called six-pointers in a row, especially because I played in them, the morning leading up to the game, that you just can't be beat. A draw may be good enough. You might be, you can kind of take something from a draw, but it's the ones when you get to the back end of the season. Remember, we had one once where we played Norwich at home, and it was a genuine six-pointer. I think there was only about 4 or 5 games to go in the season, and we ended up winning it 1-0. Jason Punchin scored. With the relief afterwards is just immense, because you know that these are games you have to win, and that's an enormous amount of pressure to have to put on yourself. Are
there celebrations in the dressing room? Like, I know you're all supposed to be professionals and the league season's not over. What is the winning dressing room like?
Exhaustion, because I think everyone is just so mentally focused on trying to get a win, that when you do get the win, people come in and it's almost like, puff of the cheeks and like, oh, thank God for that, thank God that's over, or the first thing you do is get the TV turned on so you can check out the results, just to make sure that the others didn't win as well, because that's probably one of the most demoralising things. When you kind of get a massive win on a Saturday afternoon or a Tuesday night, and you come in, you turn on the telly, and you find out everyone else has won as well around you, and you've not moved an inch in the league. So that's one of the most demoralising bits. But relief, I think, would be the overriding emotion. Let's
move on to the centre-back partnership at Arsenal last night. They're being called a clown act, all sorts of stuff coming their way. If you're David Luiz, are you a little bit pissed off the fact that you're carrying the can for what happened last night?
Not really. I wouldn't be. Not be a teammate, because it's a team game. Mustafi made a terrible mistake. David Luiz has made enough of them over the years. David Luiz has put enough people in trouble over the years. So I think if you're honest, you just accept that these things happen. But I feel sorry for the Arsenal centre backs. They're just such a flimsy team in midfield and up front defensively that it's hard to be a centre back in that team. Now I know Mustafi should have made the mistake that he made, but I think the Arsenal centre backs come under an awful amount of pressure. And I think that's one thing that Arteta is looking to put right, just have a better structure in the team defensively as a group, as opposed to just continuously blaming the two centre-backs.
Do you think then that there is a vastly different version of Mustafi and Luiz that we would see with better protection in front of them, or do you think that they're still quite average, but they're just actually playing below that?
Yeah, I think that. I think they're obviously. I'm not for a second saying that they're going to be, John Terry and Carvalho all of a sudden if you get a good structure around them. But I definitely think that you need to accept the fact that they're your two centre backs. So you either change your two centre backs, or if you can't, or that's what you're stuck with, then you need to put a better system around them to protect them a little bit more. Take away a lot of the high risk decisions that they have to make, or lessen them certainly. And that's what having a better structure in midfield, better structure up front when you don't have the ball, be more resilient, more shape-orientated team. And I think that will be a step in the right direction for Arsenal.
Because that has been one of the ideas that Mikel Arteta has brought into the club, is just giving the centre-backs a bit more responsibility on the ball. I think Emery was a bit clueless with regards to what they should actually do when the ball is at their feet. Arteta is saying to them, make sure that the opposition player actually commits, which is a fairly high-risk strategy when your name is David Luiz or Shkodran Mustafi, it seems.
Yeah, I like the work that Arteta is doing. He's got a nice feel to him. I think first of all, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd be pretty happy the last couple of weeks. I know the results haven't been great, but it just feels like he's kind of he definitely stopped the rot and he got them facing in the right direction again, as opposed to them kind of listing aimlessly around. He just seems to have them facing in the right direction. I think with a couple of transfer windows, he is probably a guy that's going to need 2 years to undo the work that's been done. But certainly if he's coaching the centre-backs, he will be coaching midfield players as well, whereas always before under Emery, it always looked a little bit off the cuff with the centre-backs. It's like, if you've got the ball at your feet, do whatever you feel is right, do whatever you think is great. And if you want to play a tricky one through midfield or a risky ball, that's fine too, no problem. But if he's giving them clear options in midfield, he's going to have to make sure that his midfield players and his wide players are in positions to receive the ball, then, those become a little bit less high risk.
And when you're talking about the midfielders that are obviously contributing to the downfall on some occasions of Arsenal, are you just looking at Xhaka and Torreira, or is that just a bit too simple and actually the blame should go a little bit further forward to the likes of whoever's in the 10 row of Mesut Ozil last night?
Yeah, I think that's what it starts. It starts with your number 9, because most teams play out from the back now. And if your number 9 is just daydreaming and the ball goes from the opposition back four into the opposition midfield too easily, and all of a sudden Ozil switched off, and then the next pass is too easy, and then it kind of has a knock-on effect, and your midfield players get dragged out. And Torreira and Xhaka, I think Xhaka's obviously not had the best of times at Arsenal, but he's not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's a use for him. And Torreira is actually a very good player as well. But when the ball bypasses kind of their front players and their number 10 in Ozil, then Torreira has to react. It's almost like a knock-on effect. He then has to react and go and maybe into an area of the pitch that he doesn't want to go into, which then the centre-backs get dragged in, So when I talk about having a better structure down the middle of your team, it's like having a more of a set midfield, that they don't get dragged out because Ozil's doing the job he's supposed to be doing, and your number 9 and your wide players are all doing the job they're supposed to be doing. Whereas when Arsenal lost the ball under Emery, it looked like that they all just down tools, especially the number 9 and the number 10.
The ability to come back into the game last night suggests as well a bit of the resilience is beginning to emerge.
Yeah.
Is that like because they were playing Chelsea last night and Chelsea couldn't put them away, or is that a sign that actually things are going well for them?
I think it's a sign things are starting to change for them. They're not changed just yet, but as I said, I think he's got them facing in the right direction now. I love listening to him talk. Arteta, I reckon he's a very, very demanding manager. I think he definitely expects an awful lot from his players. He puts an awful lot of demands on them. And I remember, when he spoke before the Everton game in his first game, he was talking about he wants to see reaction, he wants to see how they behave, how they carry themselves, and they're all important things. And you can see that it's gradually starting to show on that Arsenal team.
What about Chelsea? Should they be a little bit further along, or is Frank Lampard giving you the same sense of confidence that you're getting from Arteta at the moment?
Well, look, I know Frank Lampard is, 5 or 6 points ahead of Man United at the moment. I know that, because I know the discussion on Sunday was all about that. He hasn't had a transfer window, Frank. He's been under a transfer embargo. And on top of that, on his first day, he lost arguably the best player in the world in Eden Hazard. But for me, I think Chelsea are a well-coached team. I like watching Chelsea play. I'm not for a second saying that, they're going to win the league anytime soon. But I certainly think that they're a very well-coached team. They're quite positive in what they do. They try to dominate the ball. They try to take the game to the opposition, whereas sometimes with Man United they look a little bit kind of, the only weapon they have is a counter-attack. But I like watching Chelsea play. It was an enjoyable game to watch last night, actually. I found myself, it kind of went by pretty quick. And it was, Chelsea definitely taking the game to Arsenal helps.
So you don't think that Lampard should be getting criticism just yet, that actually he's doing an okay job for somebody in his first Premier League job?
Yeah, I think he's doing a very good job, Lampard. I think, as I said, when you watch Chelsea play, you can see patterns and structures in what they do. Give him a transfer window. I know he might sign people in January. He might sign people in the summer, but give him 1 or 2 transfer windows. Bring in the right type of players, because they are probably 1 or 2 players short. They're probably I think maybe a real good quality midfield player short. I know Kovacic is quite good. I know Pulisic didn't play last night, but he's obviously a guy who's very, very talented. But, maybe a real top-end midfield player and maybe another number 9, proper centre forward. I know Tammy Abraham's done a fantastic job, but, he's so young and it's his first season. It's a big load to carry on his own. So I think that a good centre forward, because they have the makings of a good team there, and as I said, they're a well-coached team.
Who do you think is going to finish fourth?
I think Tottenham will finish fourth.
Right.
I just fancy Jose just to put some sort of a run together. I know that might sound a bit daft, but I think they should put a good run together. Chelsea, possibly as well. But, coming to the back end of the season with Champions League, they're quite a young squad. It depends on whether he's going to strengthen or not this month, because you can see they're starting to lag a little bit now in January. You can see that maybe they're having a little bit of a drop-off. I mean, the same could be said for Tottenham, but I just think that Jose, if he gets to signing this window, I think Tottenham will do it. But I think it all depends on that centre-forward he's looking for.
It sounds like Jose was listening to you on Saturday with the lads when you were talking about Troy Parrott. Everybody needs to calm down a bit about him, was essentially your message. And Jose echoing that yesterday, everybody needs to calm down a bit. This guy's not quite ready to shoulder the burden and step in to be Harry Kane's replacement. He's only 17. Needs to play a bit of youth team football first. Yeah,
look, I mean, he sees him every day in training. Jose does. So he knows that he's not quite at the level that's required yet. And I think everyone should accept that, And then I know people are going to jump on the whole Jose doesn't do youth team players and doesn't promote youth and stuff like that. But he's 17. If he was 19, 20, 21, I might have some sympathy for him, but he's 17. He's going to learn so much from being in and around that Tottenham first team changing room, training every day with them, to see the standards that are required every day in training. He's going to learn so much, and I know a lot of people are saying he should go on loan, but not yet. He's only 17. If you chuck him out on loan, you could ruin him, especially into the Championship. Maybe if he went abroad to Holland or somewhere where the football might be a touch slower and less physical, but I definitely will be sending him into the Championship at 17 because you could ruin him.
Yeah, and I wonder is kind of part of this as well, Damien, the fact that he's a centre forward. It's kind of similar to the fact that, say, if he was a central midfielder or a central defender as well, he'd be equally susceptible to being ruined if he went out on loan. That he doesn't, like, say if he makes an error in a game or if he misses a chance, it's going to be very noticeable. Whereas if he was a fullback, if he was a winger, if he played a little bit more on the periphery positionally, he could almost make mistakes at senior level, get away with it, and then learn. If he makes a mistake as a centre forward, everybody's going to know his name for the wrong reasons almost. I wonder, is that part of it?
Yeah, of course. And I think if he could damage his confidence an awful lot if you sent him out on loan, because, he's a young guy finding his feet and finding his way. And it's very, very difficult when you go on loan. All of a sudden you got grown men, really, really battle-hardened centre-backs and centre midfield players could start knocking him around a little bit. And then he misses a couple of chances. And then obviously the eyes of the Irish media are going to be on him if he did go out on loan, and that pressure might be too much to put on top of him, because if the loan spell didn't go well, then a lot of people will be like, oh, there it was again, all overhyping Troy Parrott, he's not as good as what he is. Let him develop, because even Pochettino, before he left, he said it's going to be minimum 2 years before he gets in that in my Tottenham team. So Pochettino said that, so it's not just Jose Mourinho. Let him develop, let him train, let him get on with his career. And when he turns 19, 20, like Tananga, the right back, who Jose said, is a huge gap. There's 3 years between them, 2 years. I know Troy turns 18 very soon, but there's 2 years between them. But 2 years at that age group is huge.
Is there a danger almost that you can kind of look at, say, even in the context of some of the goal scorers last night, in Gabriel Martinelli, for example, an 18-year-old striker who's scoring goals for Arsenal, playing regularly, that almost he's not going to become, say, necessarily a better player than Troy Parrott. He's just almost better formed to play the central attacker role at this point. Like, I don't know, because like it's very tempting to actually gaze at what other clubs are doing and what what other nationalities are actually playing and all that. That to say, oh, there's an 18-year-old kid playing there, and why isn't Troy Parrott getting the same opportunity?
Because Arsenal would have watched Martinelli every week. Now, Troy Parrott's playing UEFA Youth Cup. And he scored a hatful of goals, and he's done really, really well. And it's a lovely part of his development. He's at a lovely stage, but they see him every day, and they'll know. They watch him training every day, and some days he might not be quite at it. Some days he might be at it, but it's the consistency that you're looking for. And obviously, if he's training against Vertonghen, Alderweireld, that's a huge learning experience for him, how difficult training every day will be against them, because I could imagine those guys every day training to a really, really high level. So Troy needs to get to that level, and he needs to show every day that he can compete with these guys, that he's training really, really well. When he does that, then maybe he'll be given a chance, or then they'll think it's time for him to go on loan.
Can I ask you a couple of quick fire questions here? James McCarthy spoke with Stephen Doyle after one of he come off the bench, I think. This would have been in November time, and it was before the Denmark and New Zealand matches. And at that stage he was like, look, I'm just concentrated on club football, I'm just concentrating on getting back in the team, I'm concentrating on playing a bunch of games back to back, and when that's done, when I get back there, then I'll start thinking about international football again. Yeah. And then he was unavailable for personal reasons, is what Mick McCarthy said. McCarthy said that he had a chat with him and that he would have played some part in the New Zealand game. So obviously he wasn't going to play in the Denmark game. And McCarthy said, you'll have to ask him about why he's not available. We haven't had a falling out, and I'm not closing the door on anybody. Fast forward, he's back in the Palace team, starting every game, playing well, getting praise lavished on him from the Palace manager. Is he a shoe-in? Is he going to show up? What do you think is going to happen with regards to the Ireland setup now for these two big games, hopefully?
I think he has to almost certainly be in the squad. And I know Mick is very loyal to Glenn Whelan, but it massively depends on where Glenn Whelan is in March. What level he's playing at and how much football that he has played. Because I could imagine if Glenn Whelan went into the Championship and was playing week in, week out in the Championship and was doing reasonably well, then I think Mick would stick with the tried and trusted, and he's quite loyal to his players. But I think that a player of James McCarthy's calibre, I mean, I've watched an awful lot of Crystal Palace the last, since he's got back in the team, really. I mean, I think he's done really, really well. And I think if I was manager, I would certainly start him, because I think he's that good a player. I think he has that bounce back in his step that he always, they used to have when he was at Everton. He looks fit, he looks confident. Palace are getting some really good results. Obviously not last night, but for me, I'd start him, because outside of Glenn Whelan, there's nobody else can really play that number 6 in the Ireland squad. I know Conor Horan has been tried there before. I don't think he's a natural number 6, Conor. But other than that, you're kind of really struggling. So for me, he's a shoo-in to be in the squad, and depending on where Glenn Whelan is, will determine whether he starts or not.
Yeah, and hopefully he wants to, and he feels he's ready to come back as well. That was the other unspoken aspect of all that. And one other one, just wanted to very quickly ask you about. Shane Long started last night, scored at the weekend. Don't have very many strikers starting in the Premier League. Obviously, Obafemi got to start last night as well. Nowhere near any mixed squads, it seems, recently. So is he back in the squad now on this basis?
Yeah, you couldn't not. I mean, have someone like Shane Long in your squad, because, I mean, worst case scenario, you have him on your bench. And if you're, losing 1-0 or you're drawing 0-0 and you need to get the win, he's definitely somebody I would bring it on for the last 10-15 minutes. For a back four that's tiring. The last thing you'd want to see is Shane Long running on the pitch, because he's such high energy and he's so aggressive in his play. He's definitely someone to have in the squad. But I start him. I mean, I know he really likes McGoldrick, but is McGoldrick really a number 9 or is he more of a 10? But for me, Shane Long's a guaranteed to be in the squad. He has to be in the squad. He could not put him in the squad. He's playing week in, week out. He scored last week. He's definitely in the squad for me.
Damien, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Damien Delaney giving us some thoughts on last night's action. Tonight's action is Leicester against West Ham, Spurs against Norwich. They both kick off at 7:30, and Manchester United take on Burnley. It's an 8:15 kick-off. Tomorrow night, Wolves play Liverpool at 8 o'clock. Right, if you want to get in touch with us, you can drop us a tweet. Use the hashtag OTB AM. So we're going to take a quick break and we're back talking CPA with Anthony Moyles.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The Sunday Paper Review
On Off the Ball.
When he wants to do something, he does it. A hugely impressive person, apart from being obviously a brilliant golfer.
My cousins disliked their dog so intensely that they renamed it Scalacci.
Yeah.
And the dog was called Scalacci from then on.
It's a great piece of journalism. That sums up what he's like. The intro to this is just brilliant. He is an absolute control freak.
Digesting the best stories on the back pages every Sunday afternoon on Off the Ball.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes, but for you and the community. For families, check out our kids' camps, sport academies and birthday parties. For adults, why not join our newly refurbished gym with a 50-metre swimming pool, or book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, sports pitches and courts. And for companies, check out our team building days, conference facilities and events. All this and more at sportirelandcampus.ie.
OTB AM.
Right, very welcome back. Our top 5 stories, the 3 that we're talking about in the next 20 minutes or so. We've already done Troy Parrott with Damien Delaney. He says that he shouldn't go out on loan, that he should stay where he is at Spurs for now and take Jose Mourinho's advice. Obviously, Mourinho sees him every day in training. Pay-per-view playoff, it looks like at the moment there is no free-to-air coverage of Ireland's playoffs under some contractual shenanigans that are going on between Sky and RTE, and who knows, maybe Virgin step in and they get to show the game for free as well. At 8 minutes past 8 here this morning, though, we're turning to one of the big stories of the day, and this is the Club Players Association, who last night issued a statement, the results of a survey that they'd done of their members, and I'm delighted to say executive member of the CPA, Anthony Moyles, is with us this morning. Anthony, there's talk of militant action in all of the papers today. For you, what would constitute militant action? Does that automatically mean strike? I think that's what it means in most people's heads, or what are the options available to the CPA here?
No, Ger, I think strike is the one that would be way down the line, to be honest with you, and is one that, as an executive, we ruled out for the moment because there's a couple of reasons for it. Logistically wise, it would be actually pretty difficult to kind of create. It's a situation where I think there's better ways to do it, to be honest with you. And I think the way we're going about it at the moment is the way forward. We've touched base with a number of the main sponsors of the kind of the the association's games, and we've just said to them, to kind of think about the association that they're sponsoring and what it stands for at the moment, and how it is, I suppose, servicing its customers who are people in the community, and who are people who are involved in the GAA, and if they can kind of stand over that and not be willing to ask some questions about, well, actually, is this a base that's happy? Is this a base that's not frustrated? Is this a base that's not dwindling before our eyes, all the way from inter-county level down to playing for your club?
Because obviously we've talked about the 60 odd players or so who stepped away from inter-county action. Is that a pattern that you're seeing repeat at club level?
Yeah, the one thing that amazed me on the survey results, Jerry, and look, surveys are surveys, but the one thing that really struck out at me was the amount of comments that people made. We've done a number of surveys before, and you get comments, but there was you could feel the frustration coming through from the comments, and nearly everyone, there was a massive amount of comments, people venting. People just, people actually nearly kind of blaming us, saying, will you please do more? And kind of, we would have thought you would have achieved more, from when you started. And listen, we would have loved to have achieved more. It seems like, every 6 months I talk to you about this. It's been going on a long, long time. And have we made any progress? Has the association made any progress? Look at the stuff that's coming out this morning, all about, the different schools competitions, clashing with the under-20, clashing with the inter-county. It's just, it's an ever-encroaching kind of, cloud that's coming, which is the inter-county setup and the fixtures and everything else that's involved around it. And it's kind of taking over and, kind of just coming and assuming to create or to take more and more time from the calendar. A couple of years ago, they brought in a thing where, inter-county finals can't train before Christmas. Well, that was very quickly gotten rid of. You've lost the dual inter-county player, pretty much, bar a couple of guys. And, you're down to now inter-county players. You're probably, the under-20 competition is just being stuffed in somewhere, to kind of get it over and done with. The Singerson is exactly the same. And Singerson football is fantastic football, as Fitzgibbon is hurling. You play with fellas who you'll never play with again. And you form friendships and bonds. And I know from my own personal experience playing with DCU, it was the best football I think I ever played. The level of competition, the freedom to play, all the different things, and it's vital as when you're growing up. And then you take the schools competitions, and it's all just been taken over, as I say, every year it just gets chipped away. And if the association don't wake up soon, really wake up and start to take some radical steps. And when I'm saying radical, there's a lot of sacred cows there from vested interests. And they just have to be looked at and done away with.
So provincial, pre-season and provincial, are they the sacred cows? Is that what you're talking about?
I'd say they're amongst them. The one thing that was kind of probably something, Jared, that I spoke to you about a number of weeks ago. We were obviously involved, and then we pulled out of the whole fixture task review, right? And there was some really, really good proposals put forward, some excellent proposals put forward. Were they radical? Some people might say they're radical, but some people would also say, well, actually they're required. They're a necessity now. And every Tom, Dick and Harry has their opinion on what the actual fixture and the season should look like. But everyone is saying that the current situation and the situation that's going to be there for 2020 is one that is completely not fit for purpose anymore. So I really don't know what more evidence is required. I really don't. And whether you have a strike or whether you have, it just baffles me that, this is not in any organisation. The leadership comes from the top down. It doesn't go the other way. You don't have the people at the grassroots trying to, put proposals together that the leadership can then say, actually, you know what? Yeah, it should be okay. We We have taken everyone's view into account. We have created our own forum. We have listened, and we realise that the situation is not tenable at the moment, and we need to make some radical changes, and hence we're going to make those changes, and we're going to do that in whatever way we do it. But at the moment, it's just this incremental change after incremental change, and you see the effect with changing the under-20. There's always a cause and effect. And when incremental change just keeps getting bandied out every 6 months or 12 months from whatever president and from whatever, group of executives that are there, it causes more problems than anything else.
Yeah, Anthony, I'd agree with that a radical change is almost required at this point. And looking at some of the fixtures task group and their proposals at the moment, now there's going to be a special congress, according to, I think it's the Examiner this morning, in September, to decide on these. And a couple of them do seem radical, like flipping the calendar, moving the league to the summer does seem radical. Is your issue with the fact that it is still the same length of inter-county season? If you had that proposal but just actually compressed the pre-season down, would that be a solution that would allow you to kind of go back into the fixtures task group and be content with what the GAA are going?
So some of them are getting their own, but I would be I'd put money on you with you now that they won't see the light of day. So I think there's I think one that will come to the fore will more than likely be the status quo situation. And maybe I'm just looking at this very cynically, but I think my cynicism has grown over the last number of years. So I think you will find a situation where there's a number that are in there which are probably just in there to make up the numbers, shall we say.
So why publicise that then? Because, or why even bring it to a special congress? I'm right in saying that there will be a special congress for the discussion of these proposals, and obviously it's pretty obvious that in the past we can see things get through that would be that, I don't know, you could have influence in some of the proposals that make it through. So I just don't understand why these would be publicised, why these would be made public if the GAA themselves don't actually think that there's a possibility of these things working for their organisation.
Well, there could be a possibility. I'm just saying that the possibility is pretty slim, in my view. That's we've seen how Congress operate. We've been at a number of them, and generally, once there's a kind of a bit of momentum behind one particular proposal, it generally gets through. And once that momentum is generated from the top table, it generally gets through. Okay, so look, Ger was asking me about strike, and some papers are kind of want to report it that way. That's not on the agenda. I think the sponsorship thing is a live thing. I think we've seen a lot of campaigns, guys, where people have spoken about, and even from the GAA, that the GAA is for everyone. Well, it's quite evident that a lot of our members would feel that the GAA is not for them. I think 9% of respondents from our survey said yes, that they feel that they belong in the sense of the ad campaign. A large percentage of them feel that they don't. They feel that the GAA is not necessarily being there for them, and that there are massive issues.
It's funny because
we're seeing it, that people are walking away. People are walking away from the game. People are walking away at club level. People are walking away at inter-county level. People are deciding, this is not for me. I'm seeing it at the moment. That means that you've got, under 20s, you've got clubs, you've got Sigerson, you've got it all bashed in to January and February, the worst months of weather in the year. And come May, June and July, when the weather is not perfect, there'll be hardly any games. There'll hardly be a ball kicked.
I think the fixtures is the only really issue, because I actually, my experience of GAA clubs is that they're vibrant and people are going down for whatever reason. Sometimes it's for fitness, sometimes it's for health, sometimes it's for culture, sometimes it is for that sense of belonging. And that is a real thing. The GAA is this remarkable organisation, and I'm talking about the clubs themselves as opposed to whatever anybody might think about the hierarchy. But the hierarchy still actually managed to fund all of that as best as they possibly can. So there's a delicate ecosystem there that we can't. You just would be very concerned that some of this begins to unravel. That there's damage done to the fabric of the association that is difficult to fix. And that's why it is very important that everybody get together and talk about this. What's your relationship like at the moment with the central Politburo at the GAA? Because, you know, if you guys are at loggerheads for the next 18 months, then it will ultimately end up damaging the organisation.
You know, on your first point, Ger, I completely agree with you. I think clubs have, you know, there is obviously, like, I mean, in most certain situations, the club is the centre of the community. Okay, you have a massive amount of people, especially in rural communities, but also in urban communities, that are obviously playing in a boat associated with the GAA. Absolutely, we have people involved in the CPA that are from all over the country. And they all represent big clubs, small clubs. It doesn't make a difference. But so the club is at the heart of it, and I think people involved in clubs, be it executives, committees, mentors, parents, players, they have kind of decided that yes, you know, this is something that we want to do and we want to enhance. So you'll find, yes, it is vibrant, absolutely, and clubs are coming up with quite innovative ideas to do whatever, even outside of the actual just game. But at the heart of the club and at the heart of the actual sport itself are the players. Like that, they're the people that you go out to watch. They're the people that you, as your 12-year-old or 13 or 14 or 15-year-old, you want to try to get onto the senior team or whatever that adult team is within your particular club. That is your ambition. And that is ultimately where the major, I think, sense of frustration is. You know, and that is, it is there. It is absolutely there. And I don't think the question was, you know, are you, or the answers were, you know, are you frustrated with necessarily your club or what's going on in it? But it's certainly, the frustration level is from the top, the fixtures and the situation that certain clubs or certain players, most players, are being put in most counties, in the sense of, we've gone over this 1,000,001 times, you know, the fixture list, all the rest of the stuff, okay? So are we at loggerheads with the guys? Like, I mean, we removed ourselves from the fixture task force, but it's still very, very much wide open. We've been, you know, speaking with Tom Ryan and the president, and just saying, listen, you know, we'd be, you know, watching with interest and hope that things are put out into the public. Like, I don't know, Ger, how many clubs, right, have had the chance to look over the findings of the task review and actually, you know, really debate them. I don't know how many club members, but it seems that from our survey, very few have actually had an opportunity, whether they've done it or whether they've had the opportunity and they just haven't bothered doing it, but to actually look at the different options put forward and to then go ahead and vote for it all the way up. Because, as I say, generally what happens here is there is a dislocation between the grassroots and the top level. Who's to blame? Are the grassroots to blame because a lot of them don't get involved and really get stuck into meetings and stuff like that? Yes, there's probably a bit of a situation where that occurs. But at the same time, you do have to look up, and you have to look up to the leadership to try to say, listen, can you put forward the best possible situation to make sure that there's as many players playing this game as possible, and that they're enjoying it, and that they're not feeling that they're being pulled and dragged and having to sacrifice this and sacrifice that particular team or whatever it is. And, you know, when we look at the sponsors and you look at the campaigns that a lot of the GAA get involved in, a lot of these vested interests get involved in, where they're talking about belonging, or they're talking about the community, or they're talking about cultures and behaviours and values, that's all well and fine. But, you know, if you're going to talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. So you have to get to a situation where, well, actually, am I living this? You know, is the association that I'm sponsoring actually living up to what
should the sponsors be pulling out their funding? Sorry, are you suggesting the sponsors should be pulling their funding from the GAA? So say, like, I know you're not saying any particular sponsor in this, but you say Militant Action, like, say, for example, Super Value or any of the banks that are involved, AIB, for example, are you saying that they should pull their sponsorship because they claim to be doing good for the club game?
No, I'm not saying they should pull anything. I'm not suggesting anything. That's putting words in my mouth and in their mouth. Like, I mean, it's up to them to like, if I'm on the executive board of AIB, and I'm actually saying, and I'm really being passionate about whatever it is, or I would obviously assess everything that I'm sponsoring. And I would say, well, actually, is what I'm sponsoring doing what it should be doing? And is it doing what we signed up for it to do? And that's up for whoever it is, whichever amount of companies that are involved in sponsorship to look at. And it's important, obviously, that they assess, what they're doing, what they're making fundraising money for, and that it's fit for purpose. And at the moment, you have a situation where I think a lot of people, certainly the people who responded in our survey, would say that it's not.
I'm sure the GAA would argue that it is, and that all those sponsorships perform very well for the various brands who do associate with themselves. And I'm going to just put this on the record that we'll give the GAA an opportunity to respond to this, because, obviously this strikes at the core of their commercial activity, and I'm sure that they would feel that actually getting involved with the GAA is a great thing for all those brands. But at the same time, we just wanted to get the CPA's view out there to allow that debate to begin. So, Anthony, we're going to wrap it up because we're going way over time. You've been great with your time this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. 25 minutes past 8 here this morning. Anthony Moyles of the CPA talking about that. And look, for the sake of, I'm not shilling for anybody here, but that the GAA are going to say that all of those brands who have associated themselves with it, when they go down to their clubs, they see 300 kids training and they see volunteers on a Saturday morning and they see that side of it. I think these are separate issues. I think that the clubs are thriving. I think a lot of clubs are thriving. Some clubs are having difficulty getting volunteers, and certainly the rural clubs are, you hear these stories all the time, they're struggling to field teams, they're ending up merging, and the issue here is people not having enough games. That's at the crux of this. There's no games in summertime because everything stops for the inter-county season. And I don't know how these things get squared. I don't know how these circles get squared.
Yeah, neither do I, and I don't think many people do know. I was just asking the question at the end there, what is the ideal scenario here? Just because sponsors have been mentioned in yesterday's statement and this morning as well. What then happens if things get worse rather than get better? What is that militant action? And I know Anthony's not for 1 second suggesting that they should pull sponsorship or anything like that, but I'm just kind of thinking, what is the sort of scenario here where we're having this conversation again in a year, 2 years, 3 years? What then has to happen for this to be pushed forward? So, I'm not for 1 second suggesting that should happen or anything. I'm just actually floating an idea. What is the thing that does happen in a few years?
I mean, he's calling on the leadership to put forward a vision for what's happening. They would argue that the whole point of having these 3 proposals that are going to go to Special Congress, the 4/8, the status quo, or flipping the league, that they are these proposals, and the only way to get that through is to have everybody talk about them and debate them. And sometimes this is on those vision, those they have been put forward, right? If there's people in the clubs who aren't communicating that with the membership, how did the central GAA fix that? What can you do? We give you these proposals, you've got to go and talk about them and come back to us and tell us what you think. And we're going to have, I don't know, maybe conversations like this make people talk to their club secretary and go, have you got those proposals? Should we have a conversation about them in the club? Should we go to county board and say, we actually think that this is something good for us?
Should that not be the entire function of Special Congress? That's
too late though, isn't it?
Okay, so say if there was...
It's in the 3 months before that.
You're right. So say if Special Congress's function was not to actually vote through these things, but to actually be a forum. So you get all the county boards in a room. The county boards have all been surveying their members, chatting to their members for the previous few months at county board meetings. You then have an informed Congress where there's an actual debate and an actual discussion, and you hear what county board member A has to say and how county board member B disagrees with that. I just feel that it is just very much a voting shop, that everybody comes to the table with their ideas and nobody has any room to breathe. It's not a conversation Congress.
But they're supposed to come mandated from the club, so that you're supposed to have the debate in your club. That representative goes to county board. The county board has their debate. County board decides what that county's decision is, and then they go to the Special Congress mandated to vote. Now, some counties go with the freedom to vote because there's going to be a debate on the day, but it's not working at the moment. Whatever that process is, doesn't seem to be engaging the grassroots in this issue, which actually affects them, and that was something that Anthony said there. So we've gone way over time on that, 29 minutes past 8. A reminder of last night's scores: Bournemouth beat Brighton 3-1, Villa beat Watford 2-1, Palace beaten at home by the resurgent, back from the dead Lazarus, Southampton 2-0, Everton and Newcastle United drew 2-2, remarkable game that one. Sheffield United 0, Manchester City 1, and Chelsea and Arsenal drew 2-2. Fixtures tonight: Leicester and West Ham, Spurs and Norwich, and Man United against Burnley. Right. With thanks to our friends at Dove Men Plus Care, we've been speaking with Ronan Kelleher ahead of a massive few months in his career. Official sponsor of Irish Rugby, Dove Men Plus Care is celebrating the start of a new season with a new definition of strength, one with care at its centre. Specifically formulated for men, Dove Men Plus Care understands the one tough job of caring for every position you play, delivering superior comfort and protection to active skin. Have a look.
Okay, so official sponsor of Irish Rugby, Dove Men Plus Care, is celebrating the start of a brand new season with a new definition of strength, one with care at its centre. Specifically formulated for men, Dove Men Plus Care understands the one tough job of caring for every position you play, delivering superior comfort and protection to active skin. And I'm delighted to say that Dove Men Plus Care Ambassador Ronan Kelleher is with us here at the stadium. How are you, Ronan?
Good, yeah.
Life has been pretty good, I think it's fair to say, for you throughout the entirety of this season. Is it a situation where you're enjoying your rugby now, that you've enjoying your rugby more, I should say, now that you've rose to prominence?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably started back in maybe June, July. Was just lucky enough to get a full pre-season under my belt. And then obviously with the lads away at the World Cup as well, just kind of gave some of us younger lads a bit of an opportunity to try and push into the team, try and stake claim for the jersey.
Did you see that coming, actually, when you thought to yourself, right, 2019 World Cup year, a few of the frontliners will be away, and you thought that opportunity could be something to be seized?
A little bit. I thought there was definitely opportunity there, but I didn't think it was going to come as quickly as it did in the first round. I thought I was going to have to really try and bang down the door of JT and Brian, so it was just, I was lucky enough to just get the opportunity, really, and then went from there.
It's still a brilliant team that was left behind after the lads went to the World Cup. Was there any particular moment that you thought to yourself, right, I've kind of cracked this a little bit, I am now the front runner and I now have the hooker jersey for at least the duration while, say, Sean Cronin is away in Japan?
Not really, no, because just the competition was so high just throughout that you were kind of on your toes every week, and I was just really trying to put my best foot forward each week in training, and so was all the other lads. So even right through the squad, there's even Dan Sheahan and his younger brother Bobby as well, who are all putting their hand up for selection in that hooker jersey. So it was definitely a difficult task throughout, and still at the moment there's still huge competition in the squad. So.
There certainly is. The one thing that's been striking has been the try scoring rate. I'm sure you'll say that there's 99% of the other things that goes unseen, but it is the scores that we notice the most. Is there a trick to that? Is it something that you've always had? Because being in the right place at the right time is not always luck. It's rarely luck, actually.
Well, I don't know. I reckon that rule change a couple of years ago where you have to transfer the ball back really helped us hookers out. Now I'm just sitting at the back of those mauls and getting over. So that's definitely attributed to a lot of them anyway. And just having big pack in front of me and big ball carriers and stuff who get us into the right areas in the field really seem to help more than anything else.
Yeah, it's been well documented that you've obviously played a host of different positions. Does that help as well, your awareness of the different roles within the scrum and further back the pitch as well?
Maybe slightly, yeah. But I think it's probably the training that we're doing at the moment. Everyone's able to kind of fit in everywhere around the pitch. So just be a lot of unstructured stuff, and then we also get given a bit of license to play as well, and just see what's in front of us and act off that. So that's probably the main thing, I'd say.
Yeah, because we hear about that unstructured stuff quite a bit. It's one of Lancaster's main thoughts, is that unstructured play should be something that you do in training. So when you're doing that, are you showing up in wide positions? Are you showing up outside the pack very often?
Well, yeah, it kind of just wherever you end up on a turnover, really. And you just kind of look up, and if there's space in front of you, you try and cover the ball to attack that space. And if not, there's space elsewhere, so you're just moving into that position to really try and get your hands on the ball and just try and do something with it.
Is that something that you had a good understanding of before you started working with Stuart?
And
with Leo as well.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it was more, I think it's more the way we've been training the last 3 years. So it hasn't just been this year, it's been a culmination of the last couple of years just in training with the lads, and just doing those high tempo Tuesday sessions that have really managed to make it become second nature when you're out in the field then, really.
So Tuesdays is the day. Today is the day, really. That you should be out on the Leinster pitch, and I presume every week you're just kind of making incremental gains. Like for anybody who hasn't seen it, like the articles written about you in terms of your previous positions, I'm not sure do we have enough time to go through all the previous positions you have had. You might just talk us through your journey as a rugby player, where you started to how you ended up at hooker.
Well, like all throughout the junior school and like when I was very young, I was kind of playing at every position, as every kid does, really. And then when I got into the senior school, I kind of just kind of very quickly shifted to the front row. Like so, I was put in at prop when I was at under 13s, and then I pretty much played prop for the next couple of years, just alternating between loose head and tight head. And then basically my coach told us when I was going into third year that look, just to add another string to your bow, just learn to try and hooker throw. So worked hard on that, but didn't really come to anything until fourth year. Like so, I was just working hard at it in third year, but wasn't really getting played in the hooker position. But I was always third or fourth choice thrower, like so. I'd always just work on it anyway, just in case it ever materialised that I have to play. And then by fourth year, I was put into the hooker position. But then sixth year, I was back in at loose head prop, like so. Okay. It was actually all right. But then I was lucky that Peter Smith actually brought me in as a hooker into the academy, like because I hadn't had any rep rugby really. Like I'd only played Ireland 18s, so I had no real like face time with the coaches that were making the decisions and stuff. So I was lucky he just took a chance on me, and then it kind of went from there.
As a scrummager, how different is it technically going from a prop to a hooker?
Oh, it's night and day.
What's the biggest difference?
Like to be honest, it's kind of completely different. Like even from the setup, and then like as a loose head prop, you're kind of hitting in, and like not really sure about what it's like at this level now. But I just found that, to be honest, I just felt myself more at home as a hooker. Like just kind of liked that I was square in the scrum, like that I wasn't just have my right shoulder on the tight head and then my left shoulder trying to keep it up. Like I just found that like if I could get myself into a good nice square position, I found it more comfortable in there. Right. And then the striking of it as well was obviously a skill that I had to try and develop pretty quick and pretty late on into my career, like so. Yeah. So
obviously the striking skill wouldn't be something that you would have had developed whatsoever as a prop. It's remarkable, really. Like I know you said there at the start that as playing junior rugby, everybody's playing different positions. That's where you have to start. But you often wonder, should more kind of older teams, underage teams, still be encouraging more people to try out different positions? Like I'm sure at the age of 14 to 16 you're starting to find your mould, but for you it sounds like you were 16 years old before you actually started to realise that hooker was for you, and maybe the specialisation in the position should actually be left on the long finger for coaches.
Yeah, probably. Not too sure, to be honest. It just kind of seemed to work for me slightly, but I know there's other people who kind of were in their position at the age of 12 and never really ventured too far. So it just kind of depends what works for the individual, I think. But yeah, not too sure.
And did you play different sports as well as a kid, or was it just different positions within rugby?
No, I would have played. So I played like pretty much all sports. I played like Gaelic football, played basketball in school, played tennis, and then like that was all the way up, and played soccer as well, all the way up through. And then I kind of stopped. I stopped the Gaelic football and basketball probably after first year, maybe second year, just to try and focus on rugby. But like all throughout my childhood and all the way up, I was playing like multiple sports and just kind of had training in different sport every day. Like so, it was good. Yeah, enjoyed it at the time. Like, but now I'm obviously very glad that I chose rugby in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. People tend to say basketball is the one that helps other sports the most. Was that the case for you?
Yeah, I'd say so. Just kind of hand-eye coordination and stuff like that. Just in particular helps with rugby and stuff as well. But you can get stuff from all the different sports, like something like soccer, just kind of seeing the space and just trying to attack into the space. So that kind of improves your vision a lot. So like even on the rugby pitch, just scanning up in front of you, that kind of helps a lot in that. And then like Gaelic football is the same with the hand-eye coordination. Same with basketball, and like that's probably the main thing.
It's amazing that you've mentioned space in the context of soccer and in the context of a Tuesday session with Leinster Rugby. It seems to be gaining more and more importance. I guess when you think about the last couple of years, think of everything you've come through, I'm actually surprised that you haven't mentioned hurling, because I think your dad was more of a hurler than anything else, was he?
Yeah, he was, and he kept trying to push us into hurling when we were younger. But now we just decided Gaelic football is probably more the sport for us, and went from a GAA perspective. And then so I think there was actually a clash maybe in our club at the time, so we just never really got into hurling, but yeah, he was always pushing us, and he'd always bring us to Crow Park whenever Cork were playing, so right, okay. So despite his best efforts, we managed to avoid it. Was it a All-Ireland semi-final a few years ago, Cork-Dublin? Did you have the red jersey on that day in Croke Park, or were you supporting your own county? No, by that stage I was a big Dub fan. Myself and my brother actually went with him, and all our cousins who are also from Cork. So I think the Dubs were up for the majority of it, so we were talking a big game, and then all of a sudden the tide changed pretty quick. So yeah, I think it was the sending off that day, wasn't it, for Dublin? Your father was your principal, obviously, in St. Michael's. That's an interesting environment for any kid being in a school where their dad is the principal, and obviously coming from a good sporting background himself. What was his influence like, and even just separately from the principal role in your life as a young rugby player? It was huge, really. Just from when we were very young, brought us to our first rugby club, Bective Rangers. So just brought me down there, brought me and my brother, and just we loved it, really. And then he just kept supporting us throughout, really. He didn't try and push us into hurling for one, so he allowed us make our own choices in whatever sport we wanted, and then he kind of just supported us from there. And then even from school perspective, it was always actually very handy having him there. I know a lot of people think it's very strange that your father's the principal, but yeah, I had nothing but positive experience about it anyway, and yeah, really enjoyed my time at St. Michael's. Yeah, I'd imagine every rugby player around your age has had a positive experience with your father as principal, because really, if you go through the history of the school, it's been under him as principal that things have gone very far. Obviously, I'm sure he's not going to claim all the credit for that, but what do you put it down to, the recent huge success of Michael's? To be honest, I think there was a substantial culture change maybe around 2006, 2007, which kind of really set the tone. They brought in new coaches who had a vision for just what they wanted Michael's to be, and then just the support staff and stuff. And then I actually coach in Michael's. I go back there and do the 13s and stuff. So nothing too serious. But it's just, I think it's the past pupils that they want to come back and they want to do a bit of coaching and stuff, and that kind of helps out a lot. Especially as Harry Byrne and stuff would coach with me the 13s last year, and then when I was younger, Ross Maloney coached myself and James when we were seniors, myself, James and Max. And then Max and James came back as well. So I think it's just that. I think it's just the past people's wanting to come back, wanting to help out, wanting to coach the younger lads is kind of a big part of it anyway. What is that culture? I know it's such a nebulous phrase sometimes, but what did it become? Because the names you mentioned there, yourself, James, Max, you can basically kind of pick all the recent emergences in Irish rugby, and there's a decent chance that one of them or a couple of them have come from St. Michael's. To be honest, I'm not really sure what the culture change was, really. I think it was just kind of a selfless thing. It was just try to give back more than anything else, as in the school ended up giving us so much in the end that there's a good few of us now playing professional rugby, and I think just a lot of it was due to the lads who came back and helped us and helped progress our game. So Em McMahon came back, and now I think we might have 5 or 6 professional second rowers. So that was just huge. He was a second row himself and a good player as well. So he came back, helped out, coached, and then as a result of his influence, obviously Maloney came back, Ryan Baird came back, Oisin Dowling came back to coach a little bit, so did James Ryan. So I think that's part of it anyway. And when you're training as somebody in St. Michael's, obviously the Schools Cup is so huge that there isn't much of a focus outside of that. But are you thinking about the Leinster Academy? Are you thinking about that professional contract after school? To be honest, not at the time, no, because the Schools Cup kind of takes precedence over everything really, like at that stage. Like I remember, like wouldn't have really thought about it too much. None of us really did. And then it's not only until you get asked to come into the Leinster 20 setup in the summer that you think, okay, I need to try and seal my place in the sub academy here. And then from there you're just trying to go into the academy. But whilst in school, it's not really in your thought process really, I don't think.
Okay, that's interesting because like we've had so many conversations on the show over the last couple of months just about how well set Leinster are in terms of the academy, in terms of the conveyor belt of young talent that's coming through. And there was actually a conversation we were having, and it's kind of an out there idea over the last couple of days about the possibility of a draft in rugby, because there's such a great conveyor belt within Leinster that almost if you could split the resources between Leinster, Munster, Ulster and Connacht, you would have an unbelievable spread that who knows what the next Ronan Kelleher is that's coming through that's not going to get the opportunity in Leinster, but because they're from Leinster, they're going to find a professional contract perhaps harder to come by. Like, it may be completely ridiculous in your head, but I'd be interested in your thoughts.
Like, I just don't really think that would work, because the provincial system, like, it's kind of tribal, like, as in, like, you want to play for your province, like I grew up supporting Leinster, like, and then, like, I grew up supporting Leinster. I saw the successes Munster had in the early 2000s and stuff, but like never crossed my mind to play for Munster. Like, then I always just wanted to play for Leinster. So I think it would be difficult enough to tell a young school kid straight out of school who like has dreams of playing for his province to say, no, you're not playing for your team. You're going playing in Leinster. You're going playing in Munster. You're playing in Galway or Ulster either, like, so like it'd be very difficult, I think, to tell a young player that they can't like chase their dream anyway. Like,
yeah, in fairness, I think most people do agree with you, especially people who go to all the Pro 14 games, and I'm sure there's plenty of Munster people who totally agree with you as well, that, you know, they kind of value what Leinster have going on there, and Munster had their own thing going on for a while as well when the club game was thriving. So it's an interesting one, but obviously it's probably not something that's going to happen perhaps ever, or certainly anytime soon. Just as a final point, Ronan, I guess it's Six Nations time. It's an amazing opportunity for you. You've been in an Andy Farrell camp at this point. It was a stock take before Christmas. What is that camp like? What's the atmosphere like? Is it a situation where there's going to be a big change post Joe Schmidt in your view? Because obviously you hadn't been in with Schmidt.
But I'm not too sure, to be honest, because obviously I wasn't in. But it was all really positive. It was looking towards the future, and it was looking towards the Six Nations, first things first. So yeah, we're really looking forward to getting stuck in now. I think we have a meeting now, and then we'll get after it in Portugal then. Are you after that number 2 jersey from the very start? Yeah, as we all are, myself, Rob and Dave. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be a good battle anyway. So just hopefully I can stake a claim anyway. Well, congratulations on the season so far, Ronan. It's been great chatting to you. Very best of luck for the Six Nations. Cheers. Thanks very much.
Yeah, Ronan Kelleher there with thanks to our friends at Dove Men Plus Care, official sponsor of Irish Rugby. Dove Men Plus Care celebrating the start of a new season with a new definition of strength, one that with care at its centre, specifically formulated for men. Dove Men Plus Care understand that one tough job of caring for every position you play, delivering superior comfort and protection to active skin. Now, Tom Malone is here. Doesn't need any Dove Men Plus Care because he's just got that baby face.
That baby face, yeah. Look at you.
It's because you're using Dove Men Plus Care.
Well, if there's some Dove Men Plus Care, sure, send it in. I'll test it out for you. Yeah, look at you. You're dashing young Leinster players' dreams with your draft idea.
Well, it was Eoin doing that.
Making them move the whole way to Galway from Dublin, which is all of 2 hours on motorway the entire way.
Might have to go to Belfast though.
Oh my goodness, even shorter journey.
I know, but it's a bit grim up north.
Yeah, different currency. It's so difficult. You might even have to work things out. Anyway, we'll start with tennis. Yeah, Coco Gauff will face defending champion Naomi Osaka in the 3rd round of the ladies singles at the Australian Open. The 15-year-old American was a 3-set winner over Sorana Ciristea in Melbourne this morning. Top seed Ashley Barty, she's also through to the last 32. While at the moment Serena Williams is out on court, and a few moments ago she was in control against Tamara Zidansek. She was 5-2 up there in the opening set. Reigning men's champion Novak Djokovic, he saw off Tatsuma Ito of Japan in the early hours this morning, 6-1, 6-4, 6-2. Grigor Dimitrov, meanwhile, he is out. The Bulgarian was beaten in 5 sets by American Tommy Paul. And don't really know too much about Tommy Paul, to be fair. He doesn't even have a picture on the Google Live score thing.
Right.
So he's pretty unheralded. And even our column didn't know much about him.
Right.
So if he only follows one person on Twitter, apparently. But yeah, he's knocked out Grigor Dimitrov. 8 seed Matteo Berretti, who's also knocked out this morning, went out in 5 sets to unheralded American. This is a great name. His plays tennis. His name is Tennis Sandgren, but with a Y instead of an I. And Stefanos Tsitsipas, well, he's through to the 3rd round as well. He didn't have to play a point though, as Philip Kohlschreiber has withdrawn from the tournament there with a muscle strain. But that sets up a decent clash in the next round against Milos Raonic. Later this morning, Roger Federer will be up against world number 41 Filip Krajinovic as well. So that's your tennis roundup. We'll move on to football. Arsenal came from behind twice last night with 10 men to finish 2-2 with Chelsea in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge. David Luiz, of course, got a red card for a professional foul, so Jorginho scored a spot kick. Gabriel Martinelli then made it 1-1 before Cesar Azpilicueta put the home side in front again, but Gunners defender Hector Bellerin whipped in the equaliser in the 87th minute. But Chelsea boss Frank Lampard says it was 2 points dropped.
Arsenal, to be fair, had to defend their box. We moved it relatively well. We got through enough to make enough chances when it was 1-0, before it was 1-0, when it was 1-1, and we're not taking them, and that's frustrating to say the least.
Sergio Aguero's 16th league goal of the season saw Manchester City pick up a 1-0 win away to Sheffield United and solidify second place in the table. Florian Lejeune scored twice deep into injury time as Newcastle came from 2-0 down away to Everton. They salvaged a 2-2 draw there. While in the basement battles, there were big wins for Aston Villa and Bournemouth. Tyrone Mings' injury time goal gave Villa a 2-1 win over Watford at home that moves them out of the relegation zone. And Bournemouth's first win in 6 Premier League games came with a 3-1 win at home to Brighton. Southampton also got back to winning ways with a 2-0 win away to Crystal Palace, their 5th victory in 7 Premier League games, and lifts them into the top half of the table. Boss Ralph Hasenhüttl was full of praise for his players.
Not so easy to win here, I think, but the way we played was, especially in possession, one of the best performances this season. Very brave, very good decision making, building up from behind, using the right spaces. It was very hard to defend for Perez.
And tonight, Manchester United welcome Burnley to Old Trafford. That game kicks off at 8:15. At 7:30, Tottenham Hotspur host bottom of the table Norwich City at the new White Hart Lane, while Leicester entertain West Ham United at the King Power. In the Scottish Premiership, Celtic are away to Kilmarnock, while Rangers are at home to St Mirren. And finally, in Gaelic games, there will be a first-time finalist in the Sigerson Cup. They'll be decided this evening as well. Neither IT Carlow nor Michael Murphy's Letterkenny IT have made the college's football final before in their history, so that game throws in at 7 in Inniskeen, while before that UCD faced DCU at the DCU Sports Grounds from 6.
All right, Tom, good stuff for that. Now, we recently got the chance to talk to new darts superstar Fallon Sherrock. Have a look.
All right, I'm delighted to say on OTB AM this morning we welcome Fallon Sherrock, who was probably the story of the PDC World Darts Championships last month. Fallon, good morning to you. Thanks a million for taking the call.
Good morning.
How's life been since the World Darts Championships? Because you went from somebody, I think in the wider public, from relative obscurity to a household name in British sport.
Yeah, it's definitely been different. I mean, obviously I'm getting recognised quite a bit now. I'm getting a lot of interviews like this. I'm getting more opportunities and stuff, so it's a really different scenario to what it was before I played in Ali Pali.
What is the general emotion coming away from Alexandra Palace? Is it a situation where you're delighted with a couple of wins, or is there regret still about how you exited the competition? Because I'm sure everybody's in it to win it.
Yeah, obviously everyone who plays in it is in it to win it. I mean, I never went there thinking I was going to lose. So, literally, I'm just so proud of myself for obviously winning the first game. And then obviously when I won the second game, it was incredible. But yeah, I'm still got the emotions going of how proud I am, how happy I am. Obviously, I was a bit disappointed when I lost, but everyone gets disappointed when they lose. But I'm just more happy of how I've presented myself there, how I won 2 games and all that, and I'm still carrying that on.
In that moment during the championships pre-Christmas, are you aware of the trailblazer that you are for women's sport? Is it something that you even consider?
Well, when it obviously when it happened and stuff like that, I didn't take it all in. I didn't really think about everything that was going on. I was trying to, like, obviously carry on with the interviews, but I was trying to obviously still focus on, like, playing and all that. I didn't let it sink in, and it was only till after Chris beat me, then it all sunk in of how much I'd achieved, how, like, big it had got, and it scared me a little bit because I didn't realise the extent of how big it was.
Sure. And I guess as well, Fallon, there is a situation here where you won't even realise for a while how big it's got until we see the generation of darts players and other athletes as well that you perhaps have inspired as a result of your performances in the World Darts Championship.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'm just waiting, obviously, to see what impact it now comes from it.
Yeah.
But I know there's a few people that, obviously, like Q School, there's more women entering it this year. There's been little kids and more women who've been contacting me on social media saying that I've, like, inspired them to take up the sport. And even, like, other sport athletes have been saying how proud they are and how I've helped their sports. And it's incredible. But obviously, yeah, it'll take me the rest of the year, I think, to, like, look at the actual situation and see what's happening for it to sink in fully.
Like, that is the thing, the people messaging you saying that you've inspired them. That is the real legacy of what you've done at this year's World Darts Championships. And, like, I wonder from your perspective then, like, there's, when it comes to the women's sports movement here in Ireland, there's a great saying, if you can't see it, you can't be it, which means putting the heroes on a pedestal. And if you can see women achieving in sport, then young girls will be able to go out with that ambition to actually achieve. From your position, who did you see? Who taught you that this would be a possibility in your own life?
Well, obviously, like, I would go with, like, obviously watching the people on the darts. I mean, like, obviously Trina never gave up. She's a great, like, inspiration to darts. Anyway, she obviously made me want to play and stuff like that. But obviously, when I started, like, my actual mum and dad were actually really supportive and all that, and they were decent players themselves. So I was obviously watching, like, the Trina on TV and all of that, and, like, Phil Taylor. But then obviously, like, my home life as well, like, I was inspired by my own parents because they were quite decent as well.
How did your parents inspire you?
They were just so supportive, and, like, every time they played, they just never gave up on anything. Like, even if, like, just county games as well, they were just so, like, I don't know how to explain it, like, that where they just didn't give up. They were just still determined and all that, and that gave me, like, a little bit of inspiration, like, no matter what happens in life or anything like that, I'm just going to carry on, be determined to achieve what I want to achieve.
Yeah, it seems that persistence is one of the most important traits when it comes to a darts player, whether it comes to actually in competition. But I would imagine, Fallon, more importantly, when it's out of competition, when it comes to those days when it seems that the World Darts Championships and Ali Pali is so far away and you still need to keep plugging away at practice.
Yeah. I've got to practice, like, every day to just keep the muscle movements in the arm just normal, really. I mean, you always look up for these big competitions and you want to do well in them, but if you don't put the effort in and the practice, you ain't going to. So I try and practice, like, every day just to keep, like, the memory of the muscle and stuff like that. So when I'm actually playing, I'm a bit confident on everything. Like, when I'm at a double, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to miss it because in practice I've already hit it about 10 times. Like, it's stuff like that. Like, it's a confidence boost as well with practice.
How quickly can you lose that muscle memory?
I don't think you can lose it that quickly. I mean, I think it's, like, something that you build up because obviously, like, your muscles do. What I've noticed, if you practice for, like, 2 weeks and then you stop for about a month, when you practice again or play a game, if you're practicing quite a while or playing a game for quite a while, your muscles tend to, like, ache a little bit. So by the practicing and stuff like that, it just stops it aching so much. It's just used to it and what have you.
So it's more of a physical thing then. You just kind of need to keep on top of it and keep the strength in the arm.
Yeah, that's what I think anyway. And obviously, like, the confidence comes from it as well, which helps.
Of course. It's going to be interesting to see what happens now with the championships over the next couple of years. It was 2 spaces for women at last year's World Championships. Is that likely to change anytime soon?
I don't really know anything, but I'm hoping with what I've achieved and what I've put out there and me and Maku both showed what us women could do. So I'm hoping it gives us more opportunity so we have more spaces. I mean, even 4 spaces would just be more beneficial for us because what you're playing for one space at the moment, and it's very hard. At least if you're playing for two, you can play a bit more relaxed, you can enjoy it a bit more, and then you're just showing like the sport there's more to come from women.
Why do they differentiate by gender? Why don't they just, after what happened last year at the championships, just get rid of the kind of the number of spaces for women and just make it whoever you want to be, or whoever the number of places they are come in? Because like, I mean, you look at racing and there is no men's racing, there is no women's racing, it's just everybody all together. Yeah,
I mean, obviously if we had more opportunities to qualify in that, but because none of us have like tour cards or anything like that, where we had this women's qualifier, it was just a way for us to get in. Obviously, a lot of women, they're not going to feel that confident playing against the men, but hopefully now I've changed they stay on it. So encouraging obviously more people to play, and they want to play against the men now. So I'm hoping if we do get opportunities anyway, it will help us in the long run.
For sure. I was reading Paul McGinley in the Sunday Times at the weekend, and he says that golf has to go a certain distance to actually break down the barriers that it is kind of this gentleman-only sport, despite the fact that it's a very successful women's tour, and despite the fact that a lot of women will be able to hold their own on the golf course. Does darts have any similar issues like that? It seems that it's in a fairly good place ideologically. I don't mean in terms of the structures of the competition. I mean the people who run the tournaments, they're very open to the idea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, we have a men's tour and a women's tour in the BDO, but obviously now the PDC have got, like, where we can mix in. And I think it's great that we can just mix in and there's no, like, a difference in it. Because, I mean, we can obviously compete against them and it's a level playing field, and that's what I like about it, is it's open and all of that. But obviously, if we get opportunities for the women, obviously, if there was a tour or something like that, then yeah, we'd go with that. But I still want to play with the men because I just feel it's, like I said, it's a level playing field. We can play against them, and I just feel better playing with them.
You must have been disappointed with the BDO this year, women's prize of only £8,000. Is that one of the death knells for this competition? Is it the death knell for the women's section of the BDO competition, do you feel?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Just with regards to, apologies, the BDO competition this year and the low prize money, the cut in prize money, especially for the women's competition, was fairly stark. £8,000 to win the BDO women's tournament this year. Obviously, not a great news story from their perspective. Are you concerned about the future of that tournament?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when they dropped the prize money, that was a massive worry because, I mean, it was one of the reasons why I didn't want to play in it, and there was no guarantee of getting paid out, and it really worried me. And now it's finished and all that, it is a big worry because obviously no one knows what they're going to get paid or anything like that, but it's scary to think, where is the BDO going to go now, like what's going to happen and all that. And obviously I don't want it to fold or anything like that. I just want us players to keep supporting it, but we need some benefits from it as well.
For sure.
So I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I'm hoping it can stabilise and we can try and sort something out for it, but I really have no idea what's going to happen.
Just a final one then, Fallon. What's Luca Tony like at darts?
I think with a bit of practice he can get there. But he's very... Like, he was very nice, he was very funny when I played with him, and he was very determined. Like, when we lost our first game, he was so determined and passionate and everything like that, just to win, like, the next game and all that. He was great, but, yeah, he loved it. I loved playing with him as well. I think it was a great night.
Yeah, it certainly seemed that way. There must be a few other footballers who come out and fancy themselves at the darts because they sit at home, watch it on Christmas and feel they can do that before actually realising that they probably can't.
I mean, why not? I mean, I assume so, but it'd be nice to sit there and see some footballers actually play against some dart players and to see what had happened, but I think it'd be funny to watch.
Listen, Fallon, thanks a million for taking the call this morning. It's been great chatting to you.
Okay, thank you.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio. Off the ball.
was like Raj Cam every time you kicked.
Yeah, it was tough. Yeah, it was, and again, what you learn from that, myself and Dave got together after that World Cup, and I said it to him. I said there was a couple of kicks where I'm lining up and behind the posts, like Raj is there, and he said, next time that happens in a game, I said, I want you to have him as your target, and he just put the ball right between his eyes.
Off the Ball, weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1. This is OTB Sports Radio. American Football 101 on Off the Ball.
With the Aer Lingus College Football Classic.
The first Super Bowl took place in 1967 with the Green Bay Packers beating the Kansas City Chiefs by 35 points to 10 in front of a crowd of just over 60,000 at the LA Coliseum. Super Bowl 1 is still the only Super Bowl to fail to sell out. Super Bowl 14 holds the attendance record with 103,985 spectators attending the Pittsburgh Steelers win over the LA Rams at the Rose Bowl in California.
American Football 101 on Off the Ball.
With the Aer Lingus College Football Classic.
OTB AM.
Yeah, so Super Bowl 54 in Miami takes place on Sunday week. It is between the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to be talking about it tonight. Off the Ball's American Football Show. The Snap is on the road in association with the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. Mike Carlson and Mossy Quinn are going to join myself, Ronan Mullen and Cian Fahey as we build up to the game live at the Woolshed in Dublin for a preview of the finale of the NFL season. Completely sold out, but we will bring you some of the highlights from the show on Thursday and Friday across Off the Ball's channels, so on the radio, and we'll stream the whole thing live on Friday afternoon on offtheball.com. It's in association with the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. Navy against Notre Dame at the Aviva Stadium on August 29th. Go to collegefootballireland.com to sign up for updates and details of when tickets are going to go on sale. Top 5 stories this morning. We've had Anthony Moyles on from the CPA. CPA issued a strongly worded statement last night which led a lot of people to think that they were talking about strike action, but Micheál Brodie has subsequently done an interview in the Examiner today, and Anthony Moyles has confirmed it this morning here for us on Off the Ball that they won't be trying to instigate a strike. Rather, they're going to be talking with the sponsors of the GAA to see if they believe that their values are being upheld by the deals that they're doing. Now, it's an interesting conversation to be having, and we'll see where that goes. And ultimately, I guess it's going to be interesting to see what the future of the CPA in this fixtures rescheduling or the redrafting of the schedule, the redrafting of the fixtures is going to be over the next couple of months. Pay-per-view playoff, it looks like the Ireland game at the moment will not be free to air against Slovakia in March. There are contractual debates going on about whether or not this constitutes a qualifier or if it's actually part of the Nations League. In essence, it's a bit of both, so we'll see exactly what happens with that one. I don't think that's a done deal just yet. Troy Parrott and Jose Mourinho, that was one of the other topics of conversation this morning. Jose Mourinho very strongly yesterday suggesting that he is not the replacement that Spurs need at centre forward for the injured Harry Kane, a point that Damien Delaney had already made on the show on Saturday, and he reiterated it again this morning for us, saying Mourinho sees him every day in training, so do not expect that they're going to pick him if he's not ready. And remember, he's only 17, turning 18. At 9 this morning, we're going to talk a bit more about Marcus Rashford, and Tiger is back. Will we start with Tiger?
Let's start with Tiger. 44 years old, looking to make the PGA Tour record this weekend, obviously, to move one clear. It's at Torrey Pines at the Farmers Insurance. He's got an unbelievable record at the course. He's talking about his body being in decent health. Like 44 years old, like I'm not sure you have any insight into the whole path.
Are you going there?
Not really.
Yeah, you just did. No.
Well, I'm asking for insight to Tiger Woods.
Hang on a second. Today at 12 o'clock, we are going swimming as a group for the first time. Eoin didn't show up to the first one, so I'm going to just be very interested to see at the end of this swimming mile, Eoin, if you're laying down a gauntlet, whether or not my aged, decrepit 42-year-old body can take on your like little lithe fish. Let's wait and see.
I compared you to Tiger Woods, which is
broken down, neck fusion, barely able to walk, lying on the bed, lying on the couch playing. What does he play?
I'm not sure what he plays.
Was it FIFA?
82 PGA Tour win.
Yeah.
Genius. So that's what he's going for this weekend. Like, it's a situation now where you talk about 2020 and the big sporting event at the end of the year, which is, of course, the Olympic Games, and whether or not we're going to see this 44-year-old man put together a season that will allow him to actually burst into the Olympics. Because right now, the team is being picked. He's not going to be in it. You need to be in the top 4 American players, and I think he's 5th at the moment. So
a bunch of people are going to pull out, though, aren't they? Are they? No?
I don't think so. So, like, you've got Brooks Koepka, Justin Thomas, Dustin Johnson, and Patrick Cantlay currently in there, so he needs to get in ahead of one of them. I don't think anybody is going to pull out, to be honest with you. I think the whole Japanese market is something that all the players are very interested in exploiting. All those endorsement deals over there would certainly be a lot more than they would be in, say, Brazil, where maybe there was actually legitimate fears that were misguided about Zika as well.
There was no fears. There was no money. There was no money. They didn't go. Now they're going because there's money in Japan.
There's been a couple of interesting things written about this. Michael Collins in ESPN says the Olympics, not the United States, the Olympics will have to find a way to have the biggest star in the sport play on the biggest stage in sports, even if organisers have to let him play under his own flag by declaring his property in Jupiter, Florida, its own independent nation. All the people are saying that he could perhaps be the flag bearer if he does make it. That'd be kind of jarring, would it not? Kind of walking around the Olympic Stadium and Tiger Woods is
holding the American flag.
Yeah.
Not like the most American thing of all time. Like, you know, the great comeback story from his sex addiction. Like, I mean, come on, what a comeback.
It just feels like, it doesn't feel like an Olympic sport just yet. It definitely feels like a
So he's coming back from injury, of course. It wasn't the sex that caused the problem, it was the injuries.
Like, naturally, that would probably have more of a bad impact on you and your quest to win majors, I would have thought. Like, who knows? It could have been beneficial. I doubt the injuries were very beneficial for him on the golf course.
Who knows the cause and effect, eh?
So that's kind of the context of Tiger Woods' season. But then I guess there is the situation of chasing down 18 majors as well, trying to defend the Masters crown. There's going to be a lot of Tiger talk this year, and the ticker about whether or not he's back is certainly going to be wavering every single week. Torrey Pines this week could move one clear and take the overall PGA Tour record.
Today's Wednesday. Every Thursday, Virtual Insanity comes your way. It's John Duggan's Virtual Insanity. It's his Instagram tip slot, and will Tiger be in the mix this weekend? Keep an eye on our Instagram channels to find out, and we'll put them up on some of our other social channels when we play it out on OTB AM for you tomorrow as well.
Ian Wright and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer have loggerheads.
A war of words, Eoin.
Over Marcus Rashford. Ian Wright said this: Solskjaer is under intense pressure to get United back to where they were, and he's thought about himself before he thought about the player. Solskjaer has put himself above Marcus Rashford's health. Now, one of their most promising and most important players is out, and that is to come to the manager's door. So there has been reports that Marcus Rashford was injured before the last game, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer still played him. Solskjaer, speaking to the media, says, "No, I never put myself before the team. I always put the team and the club before anything else." What we've discussed before here with Marcus, he's had minor discomfort in his back since the Burnley game. That's maybe 2 weeks before this game. We've had scans, we've monitored him. There's not been any injury there. He's had complaints. I had a discussion and conversation with him the day before, 2 days before. FA Cup, I'm going to rest you. He felt fine. I feel a little bit of sympathy for Solskjaer in this situation. He is your best player. He's had scans. There has been an injury. He's waited a couple of days, couple of weeks. Medical staff are giving him the information. You play your best player.
He says he's fine.
Yeah. Like, I think Ian Wright is a little bit out of order, actually, to say that Solskjaer has put himself before the player. There's no putting oneself before a player. There is the greater good of the team.
Yeah, Rashford's 22. It's not like this is his first season and he's playing through injury to get into the team. He's playing through injury, or he's playing not fully fit, because that's what sports people do. They play through because it's their job to play games. They get paid to play games. He can't just turn around and go, now, if he was injured, he should have taken himself out. But he says, and you've got to take the players at face value, especially if the medical staff are backing it up.
You would have thought as well that the main reason why his body started breaking down is because of the amount of games.
Yeah, unless there's more to this story, and Ian Wright has some inside information, unless there is like some flow coming from somewhere where the injury was pre-existing, and you know they were taking a calculated gamble. And all of this just seems to me still to be part of Solskjaer not fully understanding how to play the media game, not fully understanding, allowing any of this to be a story. Rashford got injured in that game. That's what happened. Next question. Man City put their best team out against us. That shows how far this club has come. Like, this is all of a piece, isn't it? He is not the baby-faced assassin. He's the baby-faced, a little bit lost at sea Bambi as a manager.
Or just baby-faced, full stop.
Like, there's no assassin here in these press conferences. There's no assassin there's no ruthlessness as the manager. Yet, in fairness, there's been a slew of injuries. It's been very difficult for him to establish exactly what his team looks like and what the personality of that team is going to be, because his best players have not been fit the whole time. But it doesn't seem to me like he's a manager who's fully in control of everything that has to happen. He hasn't been in the situation where a star player gets injured and the press conference happens and he's a little bit blindsided by it. There's been loads of incidents where he got up and walked out of a press conference early a while back. I can't even remember what that one was about now. So somebody had said something and he was responding to, and it's not. You don't feel like he has possessed the room, that he's the boss of the press conference, that the press officer is doing his bidding, that he's in charge, and that he's like, yeah, I'll answer these questions, but I'm going to answer them with my agenda. There's always just a bit too much. He
still feels like a caretaker manager.
He does. There's the bang caretaker off him.
And sometimes you actually kind of have to double check it to ensure that he's not. And to ensure that the likes of Roy Keane aren't actually joking when they say give him one more year. One or two more years, actually, I think was what Roy Keane was saying.
Look, I don't think Keane is joking. I think that he believes that. I don't think he believes it just because they're mates, but they clearly are mates, because Solskjaer texted him after the Italy game, as we know from our roadshow last year. But I think that Keane wants managers to be given time, because he's, sees himself as one of those people who might need some time. Even though Keane's future is in the TV studio, giving it to Jamie Carragher.
How long would Roy Keane last as Manchester United manager?
I don't know.
With this current group put straight in, not even to succeed Solskjaer, but to be put in at the time when Solskjaer was put in, would he have had that same bounce that Solskjaer had for the first 10 games, or whatever it was?
Because it's Man United, does Keane have an ability to manage at that level? Because the players are actually good enough to do when he's telling the midfielders to get on the ball and pass it, they can do that because they're Man United and they've spent 55 million on these guys.
He doesn't have the frustration with dealing with players who are inferior to their opposition. In most cases, in at least playing 15 of the opposition every year, they are better than them.
Look, I haven't done any thinking about this question because you just asked it, but would he do as well as Solskjaer? His track record as a manager is about as good as Solskjaer's. Sunderland won the championship with a record points total at the time, coming from the bottom of the table when he took over. That was a good achievement. He kept them up in his first season in the Premier League, and they were doing okay in his second season in the Premier League when he got sacked. I think he probably would have survived again. And have Sunderland been seen since, or have they sunk like a stone? Sunk like a stone. The job at Ipswich, not great, but not catastrophic. All the other bits and pieces kind of as sidekick haven't really worked, and we haven't seen them do anything since, really, as the man in charge. Is that as good a CV as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's?
Cardiff relegated, Molde irrelevant. Yes, it is, actually.
Isn't it?
The Sunderland achievement is certainly better than what Solskjaer has achieved as a manager. The problem is it happened quite an amount of time ago. And maybe
the game has moved on.
And you can just imagine the interaction between Keane and his superiors at Manchester United as opposed to Solskjaer and his superiors at Manchester United. There would be more of a tension there. You'd have to say there would be.
He got on really well with Niall Quinn.
Another Irishman played with him.
Who he'd had a giant row with, a massive, massive, life-defining row with, and just got over it. So, could he get on with Ed Woodward? Would Woodward ever put himself in a situation where he's going to be in a room with Roy Keane, where Keane's no, we need to do this? I don't think he is.
The potential for forgiveness with Niall Quinn is probably even greater than the potential for, say, a good relationship with Woodward. The notion that Keane would have of him is not a football man. This is representative of a role in football that hasn't exactly kept the traditions of the game alive, and it's moved to a heavily commercial world.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to be a pragmatist. What Ed Woodward has done in terms of putting all of the money that they have had available for wages has been a phenomenal job. They have commercialised the value of Manchester United around the world really, really well, to the point where they can spend so much money on players. They've just bought really badly. If the investment that they've made over the last 10 years had been in any way coherent, they would still be the biggest football club, the most successful club in England. There's no reason for them not to be as successful as Liverpool are at the moment, or as Manchester City are. They've had enough money, they've had enough opportunity, they've had enough ability. You got the mic on there outside, lads. Ooh, a hot mic. Hot mic. 18 minutes past 9. Right, we just want to bring you this quickly. As a handful of his players prepare to join the AFLW, which is the Women's AFL, Aussie Football League. Mick Bowen is content with the arrangement for now. He spoke with Maura Trasany-Kelly at the launch of the 2020 Lidl National Football Leagues.
No, probably a big change. Two girls start out, I think, this weekend as well, so that's interesting. And that whole situation is something that has probably come left field a little bit. You know, part of you would say it's probably risen the status of female sports in that, you know, our top players are now seen at a level where they can, you know, be brought into a professional game. The flip side of it is we probably don't want to be losing our top players. But at the moment it works because their competition is seasonal and still fits in with our competition. If that was to change, I suppose we'd all change our viewpoint of it a little. But for the moment, we wish the girls well. We're keeping an eye on them, and please God they come back safe to us in March.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training I was driving home, I was actually thinking, regretting it, what have I done? Like I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
20 minutes past 9 this morning, time for Deal or No Deal. Phil is back. Phil, good morning to you.
Good morning, lads. How do you do?
Paddy Power has suspended betting on the possibility of Gareth Bale making a sensational return to Tottenham Hotspur. According to El Chiringuito, report picked up by AS, Daniel Levy and Florentina Perez have met in Madrid to discuss the Welshman's future. This is a potential summer deal, we hasten to add, not a January move. Would this be a no-brainer for all parties, or is Bale going nowhere and playing out his monster contract?
I think Bale is going nowhere. He's going to play out that monster contract, work out on that golf game. I have high hopes for Gareth Bale after he finishes football of making it as a golfer on the European Tour.
European Tour, he could do that, yeah.
Definitely can go better than the likes of Andrei Shevchenko.
Tony Romo.
Julian Dix tried it for a while, didn't he?
Yeah. Stephen Grant.
Evgeny Kafelnikov.
Did Kafelnikov try it?
He played in the Russian Open, yeah.
Right.
Never makes the cut, though.
Right, okay. I think there is a possibility of this happening, and I'll tell you why. I think that from Real Madrid's perspective, there's a couple of years left on that. If you give Spurs some money to take him off your hands, you save money. So say they're on the hook with 13 million a year over 2 years. You give Spurs 10 million, you take him off. From Bale's perspective, Spurs can then give him a 4-year deal where he's actually going to make that same 13 million equivalent over 4 years. And it's like Gareth Bale gets an extra 2 years, gets to leave, gets a bit of a sweetheart deal, and everybody is a little bit happy with the fact that he's no longer an opportunity stopper for those young Brazilian kids.
Yeah, and he just becomes Tottenham's problem on why he's injured all the time.
Is he injured all the time?
He is, yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he not? Like, is that like, you know, is that not a bit, my back?
You think back to when he first started at Real Madrid, his first season, where he had a clear run at it and he was brilliant. They obviously won the Champions League, but he scored that famous goal in the cup final at the Mestalla against Barca, where he's off the pitch and he still manages to get back on, run around and score the winning goal. So, like, when he leaves Real Madrid, his medal haul is going to be seriously impressive.
Yeah.
That you'll be there.
One of the great careers.
Yeah, you'll be thinking
3 Champions Leagues?
There will be people saying, did Gareth Bale have a good career?
Oh, yes.
At Real Madrid?
Well, and he's worth 125 million.
Yeah.
He did okay. He'll be okay. Yeah. A good idea for Spurs to get into this.
If Gareth Bale is fully fit, yeah, he's exactly.
And is that not worth the risk? It is. Like, how do you propel Spurs from being a team who are perennially fighting for fourth, effectively, which is what they are, and being a team who could win a Champions League or who could sustain a title bid?
Spurs, to become a better team now, have to work on their defence and their midfield. So Gareth Bale doesn't really fit into that at the moment. Now, I don't know, you'd be very concerned for Harry Kane and that injury. We don't really know how serious it is, but Harry Kane, he's going nowhere because he wants to break the record at Spurs. So obviously they'll have no problem scoring goals once Harry Kane is fit and available. There are decent players, creative players, the likes of Son and Moura. Lo Celso has shown a bit of an improvement in the last few weeks. Central midfield is an issue for them, and although Alderweireld has signed his new contract, he's not what he used to be, and their 2 fullbacks are a problem, and their goalkeeper ain't so great either. I know Lloris is back, but he's not really.
Okay, so not a priority.
I don't think so.
Okay. Barcelona are keen to address the gap left in their squad by Luis Suarez's injury and are on the hunt for a number 9. One possible solution would be signing Aubameyang on loan. The Arsenal man is reported to be the Catalans' first choice. We did learn, apparently, though, in football leaks that he will have a net 15.15 million loyalty bonus, pounds sterling, net. If he sees out, sorry, I don't know if that's net or if that's gross, but he will net a loyalty bonus if he sees out his contract to 2021. Will he be there to claim the cash?
No.
Barcelona
will not sign. Will he be at Arsenal today? Yeah. Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, he will be. Barcelona, I don't think you're going to go for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang on loan, to be quite honest. I don't think they necessarily need him, given the fact that Suarez will be back eventually. It's not a full-time signing. This is not some sort of departure from the club or retirement. And you're like, how do we fill this totemic hole that's been left in the club? So, no. Also, as well, I mean, like, you look at the Aubameyang discourse, especially after last night, where it's like, God, it's great that he got a suspension there for 3 games to allow the kid Gabriel Martinelli to actually come in and get a run at the team. It's not like Aubameyang isn't playing as well as he was last season. He's still in Arsenal's top 2 players, but I don't think Barcelona are looking at him and salivating over his prospects of fixing him and saving the season.
He would be a better option than Suarez on current form, but yeah, he's not going to leave Arsenal, and one of the first things Arteta did when he came in was got that sorted. And the signs are promising that the players have reacted to what Arteta is doing.
Yeah.
That, that was a game last night that they shouldn't have got anything from, but they kept going. Even, I was actually only thinking before last night's game how David Luiz was playing quite well under Arteta, and then Mustafi.
Yeah, I mean, it's Mustafi's fault.
Yeah.
I still don't think that's a red card, is it? Is it a red card all day long?
It's not a genuine attempt. It's clumsy.
Is it a genuine? But it's not. It's David Luiz. It's exactly the type of attempt he would make. If that was in the middle of midfield, that's exactly the type of tackle he would horse into, and it would be like, and there was also a picture where he touches the ball. Now, okay, he's already
Problem is, like, he did all the hard work. He actually got back to Tammy Abraham.
Yeah, and there's another defender there.
But if
there is someone on the goal line.
If David Luiz doesn't do that, Abraham just knocks it into the net.
He doesn't, though, because the defender's there.
Who was the defender?
It was Mustafi, I think.
Exactly.
But, like, you can't be making that decision. I think that's double punishment. I think that's the stereotypical double punishment, and it shouldn't. Anyway, need to change the rules. We'll get on to the 4 kids who have the opportunity to do that. So Barcelona also linked with a move for Interace Lautaro Martinez in the summer as a long-term solution. David Beckham's MLS franchise, Inter Miami, have made contact with representatives of Manchester City's Argentine striker Sergio Aguero, 31, and Spanish midfielder David Silva, 34. Silva's out of contract in the summer. Aguero signed up to 2021. Silva's is up in the summer. Will either be heading stateside? When do Inter Miami start? Next season?
Started training yesterday.
Right.
I'll tell you, the excitement around as Beckham made his way to the training ground. But
is he involved on a day-to-day basis?
David Silva would be definitely a doer, because
perfect.
Obviously, Beckham has such a pull in the game that he could get David Silva. Watching City last night, it's still quite evident that they are heavily reliant on Aguero to score the goals, because Gabriel Jesus, even before his penalty was saved, you'd be forgiven for actually forgetting he was playing the game.
Club Internacional de Football, Miami, Inter Miami.
They've gone full hog. They certainly just haven't shown the word Inter in it. Like Kenmare, Don and Kerry do. They just call themselves Inter Kenmare. I'm not sure is it actually Internazionale or not, but I can check that up. Like, if we're looking through the squad at the moment, it's they haven't really brought in any of the heavy hitters yet from abroad. David Silva would be a fairly realistic one, you would suspect. Great city for someone earning his amount of money, 34 years old. You've mentioned the contract situation already. He's done. Like, it's perfect honeymoon, and you actually feel like you're part of a situation where you're actually part of something that's starting up, and you're going. So it's not like the boring LA Galaxy move. This is something that's a bit more exciting. It's got something more about it.
We don't know what ownership percentage Beckham has. There's like an ownership group. So he might have 5%. He might have 10%.
Yeah, whatever his percentage is, I'm sure Inter Miami are quite happy that he is the one that is always mentioned.
And is he knocking around the place?
Yeah, no, he was. There was the cameras were out yesterday, so he didn't.
He's the president, so
he didn't miss an opportunity to arrive at the training ground, take off the sunglasses as he arrived in to say, "I'm here."
Right. Man United could sign Portuguese midfielder. This is like Groundhog Day. Where's Huck's Tony Pill?
See, there's a development though, because he played last night.
Phil. Bruno Fernandes 25 in a 55 million deal by the end of the week after breakthrough at talk to Sporting Lisbon. It says a breakthrough.
So last night he played.
Can we get a job negotiating for Man United? Like, there's a lot of money on the table here, and it seems pretty easy. His side suffered a 2-1 defeat to Braga last night, and the star stormed off the pitch at full time, shoving a camera tracking him as he walked down the tunnel.
Now, the reason he did that was because they lost in a League Cup semi-final to Braga, who they're ahead of in the league, so it's probably a game they would have expected to win. They had 2 players sent off. Yannick Bolasie was one of them. And,
Blast from the past.
Yeah, Jeremy Mathieu, the French defender, he was the other player sent off. So Fernandes is obviously the captain. He was probably just pissed off. He's like, we shouldn't have been losing this game. Camera shoved in his face. Get out of here.
Doesn't have the mentality. Done. Call it off, Manchester United.
So 55 million is the stated fee that's everybody's haggling over at the moment. So should they just offer 70 and be done with this? What's the difference for Man United? It's only money. Turns out they've got loads of it.
They do have loads of it, and that's the problem, because people know they've loads of it, so they will hold out until deadline day probably.
Owen posed the question, would Roy Keane have been as good a manager of Manchester United as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to this point in the same circumstances?
No.
A worse manager than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? No way.
Could you imagine?
Solskjaer's rubbish.
Yeah, but one thing he would have is a little bit of empathy towards players. Roy wouldn't have much time for
these are good players.
He'd be going in dragging Paul Pogba off the operating.
Maybe. Well, so he's injured, but like Pogba, maybe Pogba would have responded. Maybe he wouldn't. Maybe he would have burned him out and they would have sold him and replaced him with some central midfielders.
So how did Solskjaer's methods on Pogba?
How'd that work?
How
is this
pretty
empathy?
much we've forgotten about Pogba, that he even plays for Manchester United.
I mean, is that a good thing or a bad thing, Phil?
It's actually not a bad thing, because he's...
But they didn't get any money for him.
Not yet, but they will. But I just think that what he did with the MUTV video, that would be just a weekly occurrence. He just go in and that would be it.
And again, I ask, how would that be any worse than the scenario we find ourselves in, where clearly Solskjaer is the nicest man of all time. He's just so nice. Too nice.
No, absolutely. And he's not doing a very good job, but I just think Roy Keane wouldn't do as good a job.
Right. That's all we've got time for.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training I was driving home, I was actually thinking, regretting it, what have I done? Like I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
More Deal or No Deal coming your way tomorrow. It's 9:31 a.m. here. We're live on air and online tonight from 7 o'clock with Wednesday Night Rugby, the football show, Premier League updates and much more. Besides, Rory Best as well in the studio. You can subscribe to the OTB AM podcast, fully timestamped, making it easy to find exactly what you want from every morning's 2-hour show. And remember, OTB AM, Ireland's first and only sports breakfast show. Tell all your buddies. We upload all our best bits to YouTube as well. You can Chromecast that or watch it on Apple TV or your smart TV. And finally, we'll be back tomorrow with OTB AM from 7:30 a.m. The Kerry footballer Tommy Walsh is going to be in studio for us, and Kieran Donaghy as well. It's an all Kerry on Kerry festival tomorrow.
Yes, actually.
Full kit.
Should.
Yeah, without question. I actually did check my schedule there. You'll be out celebrating after the NFL show tonight, I trust?
I'm at a conference.
Oh.
There you go. Right, that's our lot. We'll see you tomorrow. Best of luck.
OTB AM. This